It is Thursday, September 25th, and this is your weekly market watch for the Seattle area real estate market. Let's dive right into the numbers. So last week we had some really exciting news from the Fed. The Fed cut 0.25%. Now that went from, I believe, 4.25 to 4%. That is not the mortgage interest rate though. That is the rate at which banks and institutions trade money, but it does have an impact on the mortgage rate. Now, as I mentioned last week, a lot of times the mortgage rate will preemptively come down before that Fed rate cut. So that is something that happened because now we've seen the mortgage interest rate come back up a little. So today the 30-year fixed is at 6.39%, the 15-year fixed is at 5.9%, and 30-year FHA and VA are at 6.06 and 6.08. So that rate was a little bit lower. If we look at even like last week, it was, the 30-year fixed was at, let's see, 6.26 on this day. And so that's come back a little bit. It was at 6.37 and now it's at 6.39. So mortgage interest rate preemptively comes down, and now that we've got past that announcement, it's most likely that we'll see a little bit of fluctuation still, but it probably won't go down again as much until we see the Fed cut the rate again, or if we hear news that it might be cutting the rate. And that was part of the announcement last week. They did say that there's potential that the rate could be cut 2 more times this year because they are basically trying to stimulate the economy and have a little bit more job growth. So that's one thing that could happen in maybe October, maybe December. Those two things could happen again. So that's a little bit about the mortgage interest rate and what's going on in the market right now. One thing to be aware of is that a lot of our clients are still negotiating really great deals. So we are seeing people get into contract with seller credit or seller concessions in the 1% to 3% range, sometimes even up to 6% for new builds. So there are people getting into contract on brand new townhomes that are getting a bought down rate, mortgage interest rate of around 4.99%. So keep that in mind if you are thinking about buying. There are ways to negotiate that and get your interest rate down for that first year of the mortgage to 4.99%. Obviously, pending your credit score, how much money you're putting down, those sorts of things. So do keep that in mind. Now, when we talk about condos in the Seattle area, this week we saw a drop in the number of new listings, down by 44 at 189 new condo listings. Pending listings and sold listings also down. Pending down 28 at 163 and sold down 9 at 103. So a little bit of a dip in the condo numbers this week, and same for the residential. So single family home and townhomes. We saw new listings come down by 20 at 557 new residential listings this past 7 days. Pending listings down 34 at 579 this past week, and then sold listings down 5 at 350 sold and closed this week. So not a big surprise. I thought that we might see a little bit more activity in September, another uptick. There are still options coming onto the market, but it's just not as many options as we saw in the spring, which is to be expected. Even though we are in our fall market, this is usually a bit of a slower time. The rates coming down could spur some activity, which would be great for sellers who are trying to get their homes sold. And for you buyers, if you are thinking about buying, now is a really good time to get in the market and really try to negotiate aggressively to get that rate down even further. There are a lot of homes on the market, a lot of great options. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about starting your plans. And if you are thinking about purchasing later this year or even in 2026 or 2027, we are hosting a free home buyer workshop. It's a free seminar at Urban Family Brewing in Ballard. So if you haven't signed up, we'll put a link in the description where you can register on the Eventbrite. It's completely free. It's not for anyone who wants to feel pressure to buy. We do not pressure you. We are there to give you information and teach you about the process. So whether you're 2 months or 2 years away from purchasing, it's a great introductory to the process, and we'd love to meet you there. As always, if you are thinking about buying or selling and you want to do a one-on-one strategy session, we're happy to schedule that with you. Just email or text us to set up a time to do that, and we will help guide you through the process. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again next week.